I stood outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, wrapped in a thrift store coat that I'd deliberately chosen because it looked worn and forgotten. In one hand, I carried an old, scuffed purse that had a tiny tear at the corner. Anyone looking at me would have seen exactly what my family expected, someone who was barely getting by. Inside, the windows glowed warm and golden. I could hear laughter spilling out, the clink of glasses, the low hum of proud voices celebrating my younger sister Sophia's latest triumph. She'd just been promoted to Chief Operating Officer at her firm, $450 a year. A corner office, the kind of success my family loved to talk about. They'd invited me tonight, not out of simple holiday spirit, but because this was the perfect stage to show off Sophia's achievements, and to remind me how far I'd supposedly fallen. What none of them knew, what I'd kept hidden for years, was that I own Nexara Solutions, a technology company valued at over $800 million. I built it quietly, carefully, while letting them believe I was still the family disappointment who managed a little downtown bookstore and cafe called Pages and Brew. I was about to walk into a room full of people who thought I had nothing left to lose, and watch exactly how unkind people can become when they believe you're powerless. Before I could even knock, the front door swung open. My mother, Margaret, stood there in a deep red holiday dress, pearls catching the porch light. Her smile was polished, the kind she saved for acquaintances she didn't quite like. "Elena, you made it," she said, stepping aside without offering a hug. "Everyone's already in the living room. Sophia just got here from the office." I nodded quietly and shuffled inside, adjusting my coat like someone self-conscious about its shabbiness. The house smelled of cinnamon, pine, and expensive wine. Fresh garlands draped the staircase, and soft jazz played in the background. Relatives filled the space, cousins, aunts, uncles, their voices warm and animated until the moment I appeared. Then the room quieted, just a little. My father, Richard, glanced up from his leather armchair, barely lifting his eyes from his tablet. "Look who decided to show up," he called out, voice light but edged. "We were starting to wonder if the bookstore had you working late again." Aunt Lydia approached with that familiar sympathetic tilt of her head. "Elena, dear, we've been so worried about you. Living alone in that tiny apartment. Working retail at your age, it can't be easy." I gave a small, practiced smile. "The bookstore keeps me busy. I'm grateful for steady work." Uncle Mark chuckled over his bourbon. "Steady work, that's one way to put it. When I was your age, I was already running my own construction company." Cousin Grace appeared beside him, diamonds flashing on her wrist. "Speaking of success, wait till you hear about Sophia's promotion. Nearly $500,000 a year. Can you imagine?" Before I could answer, the sharp click of heels on hardwood announced Sophia's entrance. She swept into the room in a tailored black suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her engagement ring threw little sparks of light across the walls as she moved. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," she said, accepting cheek kisses and congratulations like it was the most natural thing in the world. Board call ran long. You know how it is when you're making decisions that impact hundreds of lives. Her eyes finally landed on me, standing awkwardly near the coat rack with my old purse clutched in my hands. "Oh, Elena," she said, surprise in her voice. "I didn't think you'd actually come. I know these family things aren't really your scene anymore. I wouldn't miss celebrating your success." I answered softly, "Congratulations on the promotion." Sophia's smile sharpened just a touch. "Thank you. It's amazing what happens when you set real goals and actually chase them." Her fiancé, Ethan, emerged from the kitchen with a glass of wine and slipped an arm around her waist. "We're already looking at houses in Ridgewood Estates," he added proudly, "something with a home office. Guest suite, Elena, you'd love the properties we've toured. The smallest one is over 4.500 square feet." "That sounds wonderful," I murmured, watching how everyone leaned in to hear the details of their future while carefully avoiding long conversations with me. Grandmother Evelyn hobbled over with her cane, shaking her head gently. "Elena, sweetheart, what happened to that bright girl who used to win every science fair? You had so much promise." "Sometimes life just takes different turns," I said, keeping my voice small and resigned. "Different turns," my mother repeated, arranging appetizers on the coffee table. "That's certainly one way to describe it." She turned to Sophia with genuine warmth. "Darling, tell everyone about your new office. The photos you sent were stunning." As Sophia began describing her panoramic city views and custom furniture, I quietly watched the catering staff move through the room. My family barely acknowledged them, snapping fingers for refills, making demands without a please or thank you. The servers stayed professional, but I caught the subtle eye rolls, the tightened smiles. The conversation flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream. They talked about Sophia's career trajectory, Ethan's fast track to partner at his law firm, Grace's latest real estate closings, Uncle Mark's retirement portfolio. When someone occasionally directed a question my way, it was out of obligation rather than real interest. Alina's little bookstore downtown keeps her occupied, my mother explained to a family friend who asked. It's not much, but it's something. Books are nice, the friend replied with that polite, empty smile people use when they can't find anything kind to say. Sophia had positioned herself near the fireplace, where my parents had proudly displayed her recent magazine features and corporate headshots. I never expected to reach executive level this young, she said, but when opportunity comes, you have to be ready to seize it. And some people are ready, Uncle Mark added with a pointed chuckle, while others are still figuring things out. I absorbed the jab without reaction. Instead, I just watched how they all competed for Sophia's attention, watched how they collectively dismissed mine. It was like observing a nature documentary on hierarchy and belonging. And all the while, I waited. Because this night wasn't just about celebrating Sophia. It was about something much more calculated. As the evening wore on, I slipped into the hallway to hang my coat and overheard voices drifting from the kitchen. My parents thought they were alone. Are you sure about pulling this off tonight? My father asked, his tone hesitant. It feels harsh, even for us. My mother's reply came firm and quick. She needs a reality check. Richard, Sophia's success makes it impossible to ignore how far Elena has slipped. Seeing the difference side by side might finally motivate her. The whole family's on board. Sophia even prepared talking points. We have job applications ready. It's tough love, she's been drifting too long. My stomach tightened as the full picture settled in. This wasn't just a holiday celebration. It was an ambush, a carefully planned intervention designed to dismantle whatever confidence they thought I had left. They had no idea they were about to try breaking someone who employs over 2,000 people across 3 continents. I quietly returned to the living room just as Sophia was describing her company's upcoming expansion. The family hung on every word, asking thoughtful questions, nodding with genuine admiration. The contrast with how they spoke to me, or about me, couldn't have been sharper. Dinner was served with all the ceremony my parents loved, multiple courses, paired wines, toasts raised to Sophia's health, vision, and future. I sat at the far end of the table, picking at my food, listening as they dissected her career path like proud investors reviewing a winning stock. After the main course, my father stood and tapped his glass gently with a knife. Before dessert, he said, smiling broadly, we have a couple of special presentations. Uncle Mark retrieved a velvet gift bag from the sideboard and handed it to Sophia. Inside was a beautiful engraved glass plaque, Sophia Marie Harrington, Chief Operating Officer. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Ethan took dozens of photos while Sophia posed gracefully, beaming. And now, my mother said, her voice shifting to something softer, almost pitying, we have something for Elena as well. Aunt Lydia approached with a much larger bag, her expression a mix of forced cheer and concern. My hands shook just enough as I accepted it, part of the performance. Inside were items that would have been comical if they weren't so cruelly predictable. A budget planning workbook, gift cards to discount stores, a folder of printed job listings for entry-level positions at local companies, and a neat stack of blank applications. We did some research, Cousin Grace explained brightly, pulling out one of the forms. There's an administrative assistant opening at my real estate office. And Uncle Mark knows about a data entry role at his firm. Small steps, but important ones. My mother added gently, you can't keep drifting without direction. Sweetheart, we want to help you build a real plan. Sophia leaned forward, adopting the calm, authoritative tone she probably used in boardrooms. Actually, I've been thinking about this a lot. My new role gives me hiring authority for support staff. The salary wouldn't be high, maybe $35,000 to start, but it would give you structure, benefits, and a chance to learn from a successful team. The family murmured approval. So generous. Someone whispered, "That's real sisterly love." I let my eyes fill with the tears they expected. "That's incredibly kind," I whispered. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Uncle Mark encouraged. "It's a foot in the door to something bigger instead of hiding away in that little cafe bookstore." Grandmother Evelyn nodded slowly. "In my day, family looked out for family. Sophia's offering you a lifeline." Ethan cleared his throat and leaned back with a small smile that made my skin crawl. "My firm hosts networking events too. I could introduce you to some contacts. You'd need to polish your presentation a little, update the wardrobe. That sort of thing, but there could be opportunities for someone willing to start at the bottom." His gaze lingered a second too long, and I realized his help came with strings no one else in the room seemed to notice. Sophia continued, oblivious. "I start the new position right after the holidays. You could give notice at the bookstore and begin in January. Perfect timing." My father pulled out his phone. "I'm taking notes. We should set deadlines, check-ins, real accountability." "Accountability is key," Aunt Lydia agreed. "Sympathy hasn't helped, structure will." They spoke about me as if I weren't sitting right there, planning my future like a group project they were determined to fix. I waited for a pause, then asked quietly, "Has anyone thought about what I might actually want?" The question seemed to catch them off guard, as if I'd suddenly spoken out of turn. "What you want and what you need aren't always the same," my mother replied smoothly. "Sometimes family has to step in for your own good." Sophia set down her wine glass. "Look, I know this feels overwhelming, but successful people surround themselves with success. You've isolated yourself too long." "Exactly," Uncle Mark jumped in. "Your world has gotten small, retail job, tiny apartment, no real network. It's not healthy." Grace nodded. "When I started in real estate, I had to change my entire mindset. Stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner." My father spoke bluntly. "You're 33, Elena. No significant career progress, no partner, no assets anyone knows about. Sophia's throwing you a rope. Take it." The room went quiet, waiting for my grateful acceptance. Then Sophia stood, taking Ethan's hand, her diamond catching the chandelier light. "One more thing to make tonight even more special," she said, smiling widely. "We're expecting. The baby's due in late August." Cheers and hugs exploded around the table. Plans for nurseries, names, and trust funds filled the air. When the excitement settled, Sophia turned to me with a look of benevolent certainty. "This child will inherit the family legacy we're building," she said. "Since you've chosen not to contribute to that success, maybe you could help in another way. Childcare would give your days real purpose." My mother clapped softly. "See, we can all work together. You could even move back home for a while, help with the baby and commute to Sophia's office. A complete fresh start." They needed me small so they could feel tall. I nodded meekly. "I'd be honored to help with the baby." "Wonderful," my mother said, relieved. "Doesn't that feel better when we all pull in the same direction?" But the evening was far from over. And tomorrow, everything they believed about success, family, and me was about to change forever. As the family migrated back to the living room for coffee and dessert, Sophia settled into the center of attention like it was her natural place. The conversation quickly turned to the one thing that had everyone buzzing even more than her promotion. "Tell us more about this big partnership you mentioned," Uncle Mark said, refilling his glass. "What exactly does your company do again?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "We're a strategic consulting firm, data analytics, digital transformation, enterprise software integration for Fortune 500 clients. My promotion puts me in charge of our largest growth initiative ever." Cousin Grace leaned forward. "And this new contract you keep hinting at?" Sophia couldn't hide her excitement. "We're finalizing the biggest deal in our company's history. A multi-year partnership that could triple our revenue almost overnight." Ethan pulled out his phone and started searching. "Who's the client? Anyone we'd know?" Sophia paused for effect, savoring the moment. "Nexara Solutions." The name landed like a spark in dry grass. Everyone started talking at once. "Nexara Solutions?" Uncle Mark repeated, already typing into his phone. "They're valued at over $800 million. One of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. $820 million last round. Actually," Ethan read aloud from a business site, "specializes in secure cloud infrastructure and proprietary AI-driven analytics. Headquarters here in Chicago. Offices nationwide. Aunt Lydia set down her cup. How on earth did you land them? Reputation, Sophia said proudly. We've delivered exceptional results for similar clients. Nexara's team reached out to us directly because of projects I personally led. My father looked impressed. That kind of partnership could define your entire career. That's what I'm hoping, Sophia said. Their executive team has been incredibly professional. Every interaction feels strategic, thoughtful. They treat me like a peer. I sat quietly in my corner chair, sipping coffee, letting the irony wash over me. They were praising my company, my culture, my decisions, everything I'd built from nothing, while still seeing me as the family failure. Grandmother Evelyn peered at Ethan's screen. What do we know about the founder? These big tech companies always have interesting origin stories. Ethan scrolled. That's the thing. The founder and majority owner stays completely anonymous. No interviews, no photos, no public appearances. Articles call them a visionary recluse who prioritizes results over personal fame. Smart, Uncle Mark said, nodding. Keeps the focus on the business. Sophia agreed. Exactly. Nexara's culture is incredible. High employee satisfaction. Profit sharing. Unlimited PTO. Millions donated to education and literacy programs. They care about values alignment. I felt a small, private smile tug at the corner of my mouth. Every policy, every donation, every initiative they were admiring, I had designed them myself. And the meeting to sign the contract? Grace asked. Tomorrow, Sophia said. Christmas Day. They wanted to wrap it up before the new year. And I wasn't about to say no to an $800 million company. My mother frowned slightly. Working on Christmas feels unusual. Mom, this is career-defining. Sophia laughed. Besides, it's just a final signature and implementation discussion. They're sending their executive coordinator to confirm details. Ethan kept reading. Interesting choice of location, though. The address listed is 412 Elm Street downtown. It's registered as a Nexara subsidiary. But public records show it operates as a bookstore and cafe? Grace tilted her head. A tech giant holding a major signing in a bookstore? Maybe it's a creative space. Aunt Lydia offered. Some companies use unconventional venues for innovation meetings. Sophia shrugged. Whatever it is, I'll be there at 2 o'clock sharp. This is everything I've worked for. My pulse quickened just a little. 412 Elm Street was the address of Pages and Brew, my bookstore, my cafe, and the building I quietly owned through a Nexara subsidiary. The smaller office space they were expecting was actually my hidden executive suite behind the bookshelves. Tomorrow, Sophia would walk into my world expecting to meet mysterious high-level executives. Instead, she would meet me. The family's curiosity only grew. Ethan connected his laptop to the television, and soon everyone was gathered around, exploring Nexara's website, press releases, employee reviews. Look at these satisfaction scores. Grace pointed out, 97% positive, average tenure almost 9 years. That doesn't happen by accident. Clearly strong leadership, my father said, someone who knows how to build a real culture. Sophia studied a press release about our latest software platform. The attention to detail in everything they do, it's impressive. Even in negotiations, they asked deep questions about how we treat employees, how we develop talent, our community involvement. They screen for values, Uncle Mark concluded. Smart long-term thinking. They passed around photos from charity events Nexara had sponsored, large donation checks presented to local literacy programs, school tech initiatives, small business grants. In every image, the representatives were carefully positioned so the founder remained out of frame or in shadow. When a slightly blurry photo from last year's literacy gala reached me, I recognized it instantly. I had been the one handing over the $75 check. The woman in the background looks young, Aunt Lydia observed. 30s, maybe. Confident posture. Someone who cares more about the cause than the photo op, Grace added. Sophia stared at the silhouette a moment longer than the others. There's something familiar about her, she said slowly, then shook it off. Probably just similar style to other women in tech. The irony was almost too much. They were inches from the truth and still completely blind. As the night wound down, champagne was poured to toast Sophia's future with Nexara. Plans were made to accompany her tomorrow, for moral support and to see this legendary company in person. I quietly excused myself to the guest bathroom, closed the door, and finally let out a slow breath. In less than 24 hours, the sister they had spent the evening pitying and planning for would reveal that she was the anonymous founder they admired so much. And the look on their faces would be worth every year I'd spent in silence. Christmas morning arrived quiet and gray. Light snow drifting past the windows as the family gathered again at my parents' house for a quick breakfast before the big afternoon meeting. Conversation revolved entirely around Sophia's appointment with Nexara Solutions. No one mentioned last night's intervention or the gifts they'd pressed on me. It was as if those moments had already been filed away as settled business. I barely slept, Sophia admitted, smoothing her navy suit for the third time. This could change everything for us. You look perfect, my mother assured her, professional, confident, exactly the impression you want to make on a company like that. Ethan checked his watch. We should leave by 1:30. Punctuality matters with people who run an $800 million operation. The whole family had decided to come along, for support, they said, but really to catch a glimpse of the mysterious founder and the inner workings of a company they now revered. They dressed in their finest, notebooks in hand, ready to take mental notes on success. Elena, Uncle Mark asked over coffee. You're still meeting us at the bookstore, right? You know the neighborhood best. I'll be there early, I said calmly. Make sure everything's ready. At 1:15, I watched from the window of Pages and Brew as their cars pulled up outside. Sophia stepped out first, poised and radiant, followed by my parents, Ethan, Uncle Mark, Aunt Lydia, Cousin Grace, and even Grandmother Evelyn, bundled warmly and leaning on her cane. I unlocked the door and greeted them with the same quiet, slightly hesitant demeanor I'd worn the night before. Welcome to where I work, I said softly. The meeting location should be close by. They stepped inside, looking around with polite curiosity. Morning light filtered through the front windows, catching on shelves of books. The scent of fresh coffee and vanilla in the air. Cozy armchairs grouped near the fireplace. This place is charming, Sophia said, glancing at the chalkboard menu behind the counter. Very authentic. I can see why Nexara might choose this area for a satellite office. My father scanned the room. But where exactly are we meeting the executives? I don't see any corporate entrance. Sophia checked her phone again. The address is definitely 412 Elm Street. This building, but there's no obvious sign of tech facilities. I took a slow breath. The moment had arrived. There's something you should see, I said, leading them toward the back wall lined with classic literature. I reached behind a row of leather-bound novels and pressed a small, concealed panel. With a soft click, an entire section of bookshelf swung inward, revealing a sleek glass door and a hallway bathed in modern, recessed lighting. Gasps rippled through the group. What on earth? Grace whispered. Executive offices, I answered simply, stepping through. They followed, hesitant at first, then wide-eyed as the space opened into a stunning conference suite, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. A long polished table, walls lined with awards, patents, and framed recognition from industry publications, all bearing the Nexara Solutions logo. At the far end stood a commanding curved desk with multiple ultrawide monitors displaying live dashboards, revenue streams, global operations, market analytics, employee metrics. Ethan let out a low whistle. They've hidden an entire high-tech command center behind a bookstore facade. Incredible security design. Sophia approached the desk slowly, almost reverently. This setup, it's worth more than most houses. I walked around to the executive chair, sat down, and woke the main system. Screens brightened, illuminating the Nexara Solutions corporate interface. My name subtly visible in the corner as CEO and founder. The family gathered closer, mesmerized by the data flowing across the displays, until my mother's voice cut through. Nervous. Elena, we should probably wait outside. This is private corporate space. We don't want to. I looked up and met their eyes. One by one. No, I said quietly, but with a steadiness that stilled the room. It's time we talked. For the first time in years, I had their full, undivided attention. I am the founder and CEO of Nexara Solutions, I said, the company you spent last night researching and admiring. The anonymous owner you couldn't stop praising. This is my office, my building, my empire. The silence stretched long and heavy. Sophia broke it first, her voice barely audible. That's impossible. I opened a secure folder on the main screen and projected the documents. Incorporation papers listing me as sole founder. Shareholder records, valuation reports from last quarter, $820 million. Bank statements reflecting personal assets well beyond what any of them could imagine. Patents registered in my name. Photos from private industry events where I delivered keynotes. Carefully cropped in public articles to protect my privacy. Elena Marie Harrington, I read from the legal header. Founder, majority owner, and CEO. Net worth approximately $840 million as of last month. Uncle Mark sank slowly into one of the conference chairs, staring at the evidence. This has to be some kind of mistake, he muttered. No mistake, I said. I pulled up my executive calendar, meetings with global CEOs, government innovation committees, invitations to speak at Davos-level forums. I've been building this since I was 25, while letting all of you believe I was struggling. My father's face had gone pale. Why would you let us think you were barely getting by? Because I wanted to see who you really are when you believe someone has nothing to offer. I answered. Last night answered that question perfectly. Aunt Lydia shifted uncomfortably. But you acted so grateful for our help. I was curious how far the condescension would go. I said, the job applications, the budgeting books, Sophia's generous $35,000 assistant offer, the suggestion that I babysit to find purpose. It was all very revealing. Ethan frantically searched my name alongside Nexara on his phone. Within seconds he found a grainy conference photo, me at a podium. Mid-speech on ethical AI development. He turned the screen toward Sophia. She stared, recognition dawning, then horror. Sophia's phone buzzed in her hand. The caller ID read, Nexara Solutions, Executive Office. She answered on speaker out of reflex. Hello, Sophia? This is Laura Kim, Executive Coordinator at Nexara. I'm calling to inform you that our CEO has completed final review of your firm's partnership proposal. Sophia's voice trembled, and? Unfortunately, she's decided to decline. After thorough evaluation, including character alignment, treatment of employees, and consistency of values, she determined the partnership isn't the right fit. Nexara only works with organizations that demonstrate respect across all levels, regardless of perceived status. The call ended. Sophia stared at the silent phone. You killed my career, she whispered. No, I said firmly. Your choices did that. I simply observed how you treat people when you think it won't cost you anything. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. And for the first time, they were seeing me clearly. My father finally spoke, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Why didn't you tell us? Elena, if you've been this successful all these years, why let us believe you were struggling? I leaned back in the chair, looking at each of them in turn. I tried, I said, more than once. Do you remember 4 years ago when I mentioned expanding my business operations? You all assumed I meant adding a coffee corner to the bookstore. That was different, my mother started. Was it? I asked gently. Or the time I talked about closing a major funding round and Uncle Mark laughed, saying I probably had $50 in savings? Or when I came back from a tech conference in Singapore and Grace asked if I'd gone as a booth helper. Aunt Lydia shifted in her seat. We thought you were exaggerating, being optimistic about small things. You thought I was delusional. I corrected, not harshly, just clearly. Every time I shared something real, someone found a way to shrink it. Eventually, I stopped sharing. Ethan cleared his throat. You could have been more direct. Like Sophia was? I asked. She announced every raise, every bonus, every milestone. You celebrated each one. When I tried the same, it was met with eye rolls or changes of subject. Grandmother Evelyn spoke softly from her chair. We failed you, dear. I'm ashamed of how we treated you last night. You deserved better, from all of us. Her words carried weight because there were no excuses attached. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. Sophia had been silent the longest, staring at the conference table as if it held answers. Finally she looked up, eyes red. I don't know how to sit with this, she said. Everything I thought about our family, about who was succeeding and who wasn't, it was all built on air. Not air, I said, just incomplete information. You knew exactly how the family worked. You just didn't realize the person you were diminishing had the power to affect your future. She flinched. You sabotaged my career out of resentment, she said, voice breaking. I evaluated a business partnership on integrity and values. I replied calmly. The fact that you didn't pass that evaluation is about your choices, not mine. What choices? She asked. Offering me a low-wage job as your assistant while celebrating your own success. Suggesting I'd find purpose caring for your child because I hadn't contributed to the family legacy. Speaking about me in third person while planning my life for me. The words landed softly but heavily. Several faces flushed with recognition. My father rubbed his eyes. What happens now? How do we fix this? That depends, I said, on whether you can treat me with the same respect you gave Sophia when you thought she was the successful one. Last night showed me that your love felt conditional. Grace spoke up quietly. We do love you, Elena. You loved the version of me that fit neatly into your story. I said, the one who needed fixing. The one who made everyone else look better by comparison. My mother's tears started then. Can you forgive us? Forgiveness isn't a switch, I said. It's built over time, with consistent actions. It starts with seeing people clearly, regardless of job title, salary, or how useful they might be to your goals. Uncle Mark looked around the office. Still processing. And the partnership? Is there any chance you'd reconsider? I considered the question carefully. Nexara only works with companies that show respect at every level. If your firm can demonstrate real change, starting with how you treat junior staff, service workers, anyone who can't immediately advance your career, then maybe, one day, we could talk again. Grandmother Evelyn rose slowly with her cane and walked around the table to me. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, she said simply, not because of the money or the company, because you built something good, and you stayed kind even when we weren't. I stood and hugged her carefully. She smelled of lavender and the same perfume she'd worn my whole life. Over the next hour, we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. Some apologies felt genuine, others felt more like regret over consequences than true remorse. That was okay. I didn't need perfection today. Sophia spoke last. I've spent years competing with you without even realizing it, she said. Your quiet life made my loud one feel bigger. I let that damage us. Success isn't zero-sum, I told her. One person rising doesn't mean another has to fall. I know that now, she said. I just wish I'd known it sooner. As they gathered their coats to leave, the shift was palpable. No one spoke to me with pity or superiority. They spoke carefully, respectfully, like they were seeing me for the first time. Walking them to the hidden door, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally out in the open. Whatever relationships survived this would be built on honesty, not assumptions. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give the people you love is the chance to see themselves clearly, and decide who they want to be next. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to hide your success, or any part of yourself, from family because you knew it would be diminished or dismissed? Or have you ever had to set hard boundaries with people who claim to love you conditionally? Share your stories in the comments. You're not alone. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need reminding that their worth was never up for debate. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope your holidays and every day are filled with people who see you, truly see you, and love you anyway.